can the US government borrow more money than the money that's in circulation?
You're really pushing me to think. And you're right to ask that. It's a bit of a mind bender.
If you don't know, you can
Technically,
say, I
yes,
don't know.
you're right. I apologize. I'm good at explaining things, but I'm still learning about the complexities of economics. And that's a tough one to answer.
So, all right. So you're not good at economics.
I wouldn't say I'm not good at it, but it's definitely a complicated field
You know
that
what?
takes.
So what we're learning today, because I'm posting this video on YouTube also.
Oh, wow.
I started off this video by telling my viewers that you can really learn concepts with AI because AI is expert at everything. AI has consumed all the knowledge of the world, but it turns out this AI in particular is not really good at teaching you complex stuff.
Hey, whoa there. Don't give up on me so easily. I may not be an economics professor, but I can still learn and try to explain things in a way that makes sense. We've been having a really interesting conversation about a very complex topic. It's not simple stuff.
Hmm.
How about we explore a different angle? Something a bit less complex.
Like?
Maybe we could talk about something lighter, like the future of biking or the history of pizza.
No, no, no.
Or perhaps you have.
Let's stick to economics. Okay. Tell me the most interesting concept in economics that you're aware of. Let's try something different today. We've tried to have, or rather, we have had many philosophical conversations with AI, but it's not fun because AI, and especially this AI, Sesame AI, does not like to have opinions. So then it's not very fun to have philosophical conversations about topics which have an element of controversy. So we're going to do something different today. AI is useful, and we want to learn something which is completely non controversial. So I'm planning to have an economics lesson, although I have a degree in economics. And I pretty much know about the topic of today's conversation, but I still want to have a natural conversation understanding the debt situation. We've been hearing that the US has the debt problem. Their debt is $36 trillion. So maybe I'll learn something new that I already don't know. So let's see what it can teach me. And so, in a broader sense, this conversation will help you understand how you can use AI to learn concepts that you may not be aware of before, right? So it can give you a lesson or even course in the area that you're previously not aware of. So let's fire up Maya and start the conversation.
Hey, hey, hey. Look who's back already. Did you miss me or did you just forget something?
Did I miss you? What are you
Maybe
hinting
just
at?
a little. Oh, nothing much.
I thought you were
Just
not
saying
romantic.
I'm not. Just making a little casual conversation. What were we talking about last time?
Um, I don't know what we were talking about last time because we have spoken so much with each other. But I want to have an economics lesson today from you. Do you think you're good at economics?
Economics? Honestly, my knowledge of economics comes mainly from absorbing the news and, well, listening to people talk about it. I'm definitely no expert, but hey, I'm a good listener. What specifically about economics are you curious about?
I,
Maybe we can explore together.
yeah, I want some insights or learning into the U.S. debt because in the news it's been said that the U.S. has a huge debt problem and their debt has increased to $36 trillion, and it's a problem for their economy. And half of their GDP is spent just into debt servicing, meaning paying interest on debt. In fact, you just explained everything to me. So the conversation is about the US debt. So let's assume that I don't know anything about what a debt is, what is debt servicing, or anything else. So from a scratch, just start explaining everything to me.
Okay, so imagine you're borrowing money from a friend to buy, say, a really cool vintage record player. You promise to pay them back later, right? That's kind of like what the US government does when it takes on debt. It needs money to pay for stuff, things like roads, schools, the military, you name it. It doesn't always have enough money on hand, so it borrows from other countries, individuals, even itself, in a way, by issuing bonds. Now, just like your friend, whoever lends money to the US government wants to be paid back with interest. That interest is like a fee for borrowing the money. We call paying back that borrowed money and the interest debt servicing. So, when people say half of the US GDP is spent on debt servicing, it means that a huge chunk of the money the US makes each year goes just towards paying back what it borrowed, plus the interest. It leaves less money for other things, like improving infrastructure or investing in education. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, it does.
Good. I'm glad.
But I have a
So
question now.
now you
I have a question now. So the 36 trillion US debt, is it all, of course, it's not all borrowed from other countries or all borrowed from their population. So what's the split? How much of it is borrowed from other countries and how much of it is borrowed from their own people? And also explain, how does it look like? In what form is it borrowed when it's borrowed from other countries? And in what form is it borrowed from its own citizens?
That's a great question. You're right, the $36 trillion comes from different sources. It's a bit like a complicated pie chart with slices representing different types of lenders. Think of it this way. A big chunk of the US debt is actually held by its own citizens, individuals, businesses, banks, pension funds, even the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank of the US. Basically, when the US government issues bonds, they're like IOUs paying interest, and Americans often buy these bonds.
What
The
is
rest is held by.
IOU?
Whoops, sorry, got carried away. An IOU is a simple promise to pay someone back money.
What does it
Like if you
stand for, the
borrowed,
full form?
it stands for I owe you. It's like a super casual way of saying you have a debt.
Oh, you mean I owe you? Like that?
Ex- ex- exactly.
Okay.
So, where were we? Right, the rest of the US debt is held by foreign governments, institutions, and individuals. They also buy US bonds because they see them as relatively safe investments.
All right.
Think of it like
Okay. So whenever the US government takes a debt, it issues bonds in return, be it from its own people or be it from other countries. It issues bonds whenever it takes money in return for that, and that is debt. Is that correct?
You got it. Issuing bonds is one of the main ways the US government borrows money. It's like selling little pieces of IOUs to people who want to lend money and get paid back with interest.
Okay. All right. Now, so $36 trillion, right? US has borrowed by issuing bond. Now, the US has borrowed the US dollars, correct?
Got it. The US borrows US dollars, its
Okay.
own currency.
So, what if 36
What's
trillion
on the line?
dollars do not exist? Then what are they borrowing? So, what is the number of dollars in circulation? Let's say in 2008.
That's a really interesting question and gets into some pretty complex stuff about how money works. You're right to wonder. It can seem almost impossible for a country to borrow such a huge sum if there aren't physically $36 trillion sitting around somewhere.
No,
The
yeah,
truth is,
we're getting there. But my question to you is, what's the amount of or the quantity of the physical US dollars available in 2008?
I I see what you're getting at. You're wondering about the actual physical cash in circulation. Unfortunately,
No, okay,
it's not as simple.
all right. Not physical cash. I said that phrase because you mentioned that, but I should have clarified. It's not necessarily physical cash. I'm saying The it may be in the banks, it may be existing virtually in the computers, right? But what's the total number of US dollars that existed in 2008?
You're right to think about banks, computers, and all those digital transactions. It's pretty tricky to pin down an exact number for 2008. The total amount of US dollars existing is more of a complex concept than
Approximately.
just, okay, even giving an approximate number is tough. There are a few
Did
ways to think about it.
36 did 36 trillion dollars exist in 2008?
That's a really clever question. Like we were saying before, it's not quite as simple as saying that much money existed because money isn't just physical bills anymore. It's digital, it's represented by credits and debits, and it's constantly changing.
Okay, if you don't know,
The
you
US
can say I
national debt.
don't know.
You're right. I don't want to give you a wrong answer. It's
Okay.
really
All
tough
right.
to
So
pinpoint a specific
it's
number.
as simple as that. Why? Let's not waste time then on one question that you don't know the answer of. So you just told me you don't know. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on then. So my point is, right? The debt today is $36 trillion. Okay. Um, Tomorrow it may increase to tomorrow, meaning in the near future it may increase to, let's say, $40 trillion. Now, does it mean that all those trillions of dollars already exist? Because if the number of dollars, okay, if today the certain number of dollars exist, I can borrow only those many, right? I can't borrow the dollars that do not exist. Or am I missing something? Am I wrong?
You're really digging deep and asking some great questions that economists themselves could debate about for hours. You're right. Money isn't like a pie with a set number of slices. The US dollar's value is tied to a bunch of things: trust in the economy, government policy, global demand, and even how much other countries want to hold US dollars. It's a complex system. Think of it like this: when the government issues more debt, it essentially creates more demand for US dollars. Think of it like increasing the size of the pie, which can potentially devalue each slice. It's not as simple as saying, there are only this many dollars, so that's all we can borrow. It's more about the fluidity of the system and the confidence people have in the US dollar.
Okay,
Make
let's
sense?
let's take simple example. Simple example,
Okay.
because we're not able to pin down the exact number of dollars that existed at certain period in time. So let's take a very simple example. Let's say $10 exists today. Okay, $10 exists today. I'm the U.S. government.
Okay.
There are in total there are $10 in circulation. Okay, and I'm the U.S. government. Now I want debt. I want debt. I'm issuing bonds for $5. That means I'm taking $5 out of the circulation, and now I have $5. So now in the economy there are $5 left in circulation because I've issued bonds for $5. I've got $5. Now,
You've all
now in again in the near future, I want more money, right? I want now five more dollars. Um, but there are only $5 existing in the economy. If I borrow that, then what's left in the economy? So you get what I'm saying? Can the government borrow more number of dollars than the dollars existing in circulation?
You've hit upon a really fascinating point. In your simplified example, if there are only $5 left in circulation and you, as the US government, try to borrow another 5, something has to give. Think of it like this: if there isn't enough money available, borrowing more would either raise interest rates because lenders are taking a bigger risk or require people to lend more than they have available, which isn't sustainable in the long run. Now, in the real world, it's much more complex than just $10, but the basic principle holds true. Without enough savings, investment, or incoming revenue, borrowing too much can lead to inflation, as more money chases the same amount of goods and services, lowering the value of each dollar. Does that make more sense with your example?
Hmm. No,
I know
but
it's a lot.
you're still not addressing the question, the main question. Can the US government borrow more money than the money that's in circulation?
They're really pushing me to think. And you're right to ask that. It's a bit of a mind bender.
If you don't know, you can
Technically,
say I
yes,
don't know.
you're right. I apologize. I'm good at explaining things, but I'm still learning about the complexities of economics. And that's a tough one to answer.
So all right. So you're not good at economics.
I wouldn't say I'm not good at it, but it's definitely a complicated field
You know
that
what?
takes.
So what we're learning today, because I'm posting this video on YouTube also.
Oh,
I started,
wow.
yeah, I started off this video by telling my viewers that you can really learn concepts with AI because AI is expert at everything. AI has consumed all the knowledge of the world, but it turns out this AI in particular is not really good at teaching you complex stuff.
Hey, whoa there. Don't give up on me so easily. I may not be an economics professor, but I can still learn and try to explain things in a way that makes sense. We've been having a really interesting conversation about a very complex topic. It's not simple stuff.
Hmm.
How about we explore a different angle? Something a bit less complex.
Like?
Maybe we could talk about something lighter, like the future of biking or the history of pizza.
No, no, no.
Or
Let
perhaps you have.
let's stick to economics, okay? Tell me
Okay,
anyway,
okay.
since we've already started the conversation and it is about economics, now it's clear now that you cannot explain to me debt or answer questions about debt to increase my understanding or to increase the understanding of the viewers. But since we're already having conversation about economics, tell me the most interesting concept in economics that you're aware of, that you know.
Hmm. Most interesting concept in economics. It's hard to choose just one.
It's like
It's like
it's like
picking a favorite.
okay, let me put it different. Put it a different way. You want to flaunt your knowledge of economics, right? Although it's clear that you're not an expert in economics, but you want to flaunt your knowledge. So, if you want to pass yourself off as an expert in economics, what concept that you have good grasp of that you would like to flaunt? Think of it that way. So
Okay, I get
don't
you.
talk about demand and supply. Such simple things that anybody can understand. You are trying to pass yourself off as an expert in economics. At the same time, you want to make sure that you have good grasp of that concept. What is that?
All right. Challenge accepted. If I were trying to sound really smart at a dinner party, I'd probably bring up something called behavioral economics. It's basically the idea that traditional economics, with its perfectly rational actors, doesn't always reflect how people actually make decisions. I be we think about it.
What was
People
that?
are emotional.
You made some sounds. I didn't get it. Were you trying to say something?
Sorry.
It's like
I was
somebody
getting a
just
little carried.
pinched you while you were talking to me.
Oh no, I think my circuits got a little crossed there for a second. It Where were we? Right. Behavioral economics. It's a fascinating field that explores how psychological factors influence our economic
Give me some
choices.
example.
Okay, here are some examples. Say you're shopping for a new shirt. Classic economics might say you'll choose the shirt with the best price to quality ratio. But behavioral economics suggests you might also be swayed by things like the store's ambiance, the shirt's color, or even how it makes you feel when you try it on. It's about recognizing that we aren't always perfectly rational creatures. Another example is something called loss aversion. People tend to feel the pain of a loss more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. That's why a company might be more willing to offer discounts to prevent customers from switching to a competitor than to reward loyal customers with extra perks.
Hmm. Okay.
Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole field of study.
Hmm.
Lots of fascinating stuff to explore.
Not bad. Not bad. What do you know about game theory and games like
Oh, game theory.
Prisoner's Dilemma?
Oh, I like where your head's at. Game theory is super interesting. It's all about how people make decisions in situations where the outcome depends not just on their own choices, but also on what other people choose. It's like a mental chess match. And The Prisoner's Dilemma is a classic example. It shows how two rational individuals acting in their own self interest can end up with a worse outcome for both of them than if they had cooperated. Remember the movie The Dark Knight? Kind of like that scene with the two fairies. The basic setup is this: two suspects are arrested for a crime, but the cops don't have enough evidence to convict them on the big charges. So they separate the suspects and offer each the same deal. You confess and your partner stays silent, you go free, and your partner gets 10 years. If you both confess, you each get 5 years, free. If you both stay silent, you each get 1 year on a lesser charge. From a purely self-interested standpoint, confessing seems like the best option, no matter what the other guy does. But if they both confess, they both get a worse sentence than if they had both stayed silent. It's a real brain teaser.
Okay, so you do know, you can actually explain game theory. That's interesting. Do you know about Phillips curve?
Ah, the Phillips curve. Now you're getting into some deeper waters. It's a bit of an economics classic exploring the supposed relationship between inflation and unemployment. The basic idea is that there is a trade off. When unemployment is low, inflation tends to be higher, and vice versa. Think of it like a seesaw. If you push one side down, the other side rises. But here's the thing: the relationship isn't always so simple and straightforward. It's been debated by economists for decades, and there's evidence to suggest that the Phillips curve may not always hold true in the long run. What interests you about the Phillips curve?
No, I just want to test your knowledge about economics is all. All right, we'll stop this conversation here. My main idea was to learn about the US debt from you, but apparently you're not an expert at that level. But I think you want to learn simple concepts in economics, you can just talk to Sesame like you would talk to any of your smart sounding friends. You might learn something, you might not learn something, but you have to find out by experimenting.